Hi, my name is Will Chow and I'm a huge fan of escape rooms. I've done 3 escape rooms now, all from different companies, and they've all been incredible. One was a Harry Potter one that was fantastic. One was a bit of a terrorist kidnapping one, which was a bit crazy. And then there's one that was a runaway train one. So these have been fantastic, and I want to share with you some tips based off my experience with escape rooms for you to solve the escape room much faster or in time, because frankly most people don't even get close to escaping in the time limit because they are hard if you get a good one. So the first tip is to not always brute force everything. A lot of people just like to be, hey, let's just brute force all of these combinations and figure out which works. Most escape rooms have a lot of locks and combinations and codes, and you have that temptation to just go down the list and just try everything you can. Obviously that's not going to work, and you're not going to do that for combination of locks with 6 digits on it, but you might do that for something smaller where you have 6 different codes and one of them works and you enter them one at a time. Sometimes it's just better to get a little bit more feedback and then use that to figure out the answer. I won't spoil it, but there are some details with the train one where the train was going to break. The brake system wasn't working. So if you use that clue, you could have figured out which of those codes to blow the horn was better. And there's only like several there. So we could have just gone down each one, and that's what we did, but that was very slow and it cost a lot of time. My second tip is kind of shocking, but it's the opposite. There are times when you should brute force it. And those times are really when you have a very short code or a very small, tiny list of possibilities, and that does happen too. It doesn't happen in all escape rooms, but it does happen. For example, there was one lock I had to unlock, and it was a very simplistic lock. You basically had 4 letters, and you had to come up with 4-letter words that until one of them worked that would unlock it. And the legitimate way of doing it, which is the way we went, was to solve this really complex mathematical problem with like anagrams and a riddle. And it took a long time for us to solve that. But that cost us a lot of time and caused us to be about 10 minutes short of finishing. However, one thing I did was I considered, hey, maybe we should just guess, and I think this is the word. It's a 4-letter word. There's only a certain many 4-letter words. Plus, the lock was so simplistic that each letter only had about like 7 options. So that cuts down on a lot of possibilities for 4-letter words because there's only 7 possible letters per letter of that word. And I actually was thinking about doing it, and I would have guessed the right one, but I didn't execute on that because we figured, oh, that wouldn't work. Let's just do it the old-fashioned way. Now, the third tip is, if you're doing this for fun, also make sure to enjoy the process too. That gets your creative juices flowing, and that way you won't get like so pissed off all the time, because the point is to have fun. And by relaxing more, you start looking outside the box and trying new things, which leads me to the 4th tip, which is look above and below. I think a lot of people look at what's eye level or below them slightly or above them slightly, but sometimes there may be stuff on the ceiling or on the floor beneath a rug, on the bottom corner of a wall. There might be a secret compartment or a laser that's shooting out that you can reflect off mirrors. So that's one of the big things that a lot of people don't realize. Sometimes what you're looking for is like on the bottom of the wall or just somewhere beneath a carpet that you haven't considered looking. That brings me to my 5th tip for escaping escape rooms efficiently, which is that you want to have a time limit to how long it takes before you ask for a clue from the game master. So some people are very stubborn and they decide not to use a game master at all. But if you want to have a fun experience, and most people are there to have fun, and if you want to get better and as you do more escape rooms, set yourself a time limit. So some escape rooms have timestamps where the game master who's overseeing the room and is like watching your every step from a video camera, they have timestamps for when you should get to certain tasks at certain points. And if you're running way behind that, they will speak up and tell you so that they can give you clues so that you're not stuck on step 2 when there's 15 steps ahead of you. That's not very fun. You're missing out on a lot of really cool, surprises by, getting hung up on a step. So request that, otherwise the game master won't tell you. They will keep quiet by default because they assume that you don't want any clues. So, set yourself a time limit and or ask for the person to call out timestamps so that when you're running past by like 10 minutes on the timestamp, you can request help and it won't be a big issue. And then the sixth and final tip I have for you is that when you're doing escape rooms, you get a lot of locks and combination codes and keys and stuff like that. And you get things that are underlined, maybe words that are underlined, and receipts. So you basically get a lot of merchandise or little knickknacks that often have significance. So when you're doing that, just realize that sometimes it requires some connecting. So if one person says one thing, and they say it in a funny way, it's usually a clue or a analogy for something else. So if they say something like, maybe you open up the chest and there's like this note in there and it's a letter, but then like one of the lines reads something a little funny like, we are on the top of the mountain, and then you see a picture of a mountain. Well, there's a obvious connection. Sometimes they'll exaggerate it a bit, but usually they downplay it but exaggerate it just enough so that most people overlook it. And that's where you can kind of connect the dots. Depending on your escape room, seventh tip. Depending on the escape room, you might have certain tools and gadgets going, so be on the lookout for that, depending on how advanced the company is. Some companies have lasers pointing off walls and reflecting off mirrors that, when you position them right, it'll unlock something. Others have touch screen pads. Others have things where you use a touch screen and look through it, and by looking through it, you can see things that you wouldn't have. So with the more high-tech ones, there's a bit more extra stuff at play that you want to just watch out for and look for, otherwise you'll miss it. A big one that people miss often are scan pads. So any type of like piece of paper that has like a thick bit of middle to it, or a book or something, try waving that across any area that likely has some detection software. Sometimes you won't see a laser or a light at all, but if you wave it across, sometimes it'll unlock something because there is some magnetic scan system set up to do that. So those are my 7 tips for an escape room. I would say as a conclusion, the biggest tip I can give you, other than just to have fun, because if you're here to just have fun and you just stress out and fight everyone, that's not fun. But another cool tip, just to conclude and summarize, the biggest tip I have for you is go in there with an open mind and put your hands on everything. Try out, look at all the gadgets in there, look at everything in there, read the text, because they almost always, unless it's like a haunted house one, where they're just there to scare you, they almost always have some riddles or stuff in there, and that usually plays a bigger role into the whole part of the puzzle. There will be some, wordsmithing going on, some play on words, so look out for that. And if you apply all these tips and you move efficiently, you're going to do well. Thanks.